Hey there, Wendy here with Jazzydoodledesigns, and today we're going to do a color along in the seasonal wreaths of plants and friends. This is the newest book by Mikiko Inatomi, and we are going to be doing one of the winter pages. This one entitled Love Letter. And so I am going to be doing the background in pan pastels. I haven't decided what color pencils I'm going to use. I'm sure you already know because it probably says in the description. But anyway, I've picked out some different shades in blues and greens. One of the questions I do get asked though is, should I do my background first or should I do my picture first? Really, there is no perfect answer to this. One of the things that I will say is that you can do your background and then choose your colors accordingly when you do your image. Or you can do your image first and then place your background. I'm going to tell you the benefits of doing it this way. If you do your background first, when you go in, and let's say I just take a little bit of this, which one was this? Phthalo green tint, right? And if I go in and I just add a little bit here, you can see that I went over my image, but it brings that color all the way across the line. Now I can come in and just with an eraser, erase it off of my image, and I still have it all the way to the top of the line. I don't have to worry about having gaps, you know, where your background doesn't go all the way there. Now, if I color it first, I can still do that same method, but then you have to wipe your colored pencil to get any remaining pastel off of it, which works great if you've burnished. If you have not burnished, or if you have any sort of loose colored pencils, you can risk bringing that colored pencil into your artwork. Now, I have done it that way, so it's not that it can't be done. I just kind of prefer to do it this way, and then once my background's on the page, then that kind of guides some of my color choices as well. Now, in my mind, I'm thinking that these Christmas rose are going to be white with little either periwinkle or gray to do the shadows, right? Green leaves, and then down here the narcissus is usually yellows and oranges, and then each of these are just those flowers in a different configuration. So my thought is to have kind of some white and real light yellow here, and then spreading out into the greens and the blues with the edges around the edge, framing this in the darker gray. So that's kind of what I'm picturing in my mind. And then that way, it's going to bring in the yellows from these flowers into the picture, but also some of the blues and stuff will be also repeated here in our jar and our letter. So let's dive in. So just a note about the tools that I'm using. These are the soft tools. Each of these, I have one for my blues and green tones, which I will not swap out in between the different shades. This one will be reserved for the white, and the two yellows, and then this one will be for my darks, the grays, the gray tones when I go around. I do recommend that you do set aside at least color families. You can buy these little, a lot of times they come with a certain number of these. I know I've gotten a bunch of these over the years, and they last a fairly long time if you're not aggressive with them. If you are using them on rougher paper, then you can have problems. But so let's kind of start out with, I'm going to start out with white. And the reason is because I want to establish my highlight area. So I'm thinking that this area right here is going to kind of be my lightest area. You know, down into here probably. So I kind of want to make sure that my white area or my light area stays light. And one way to do that is by just adding a little bit of white, which will help dilute any color. Now, I'm not worried about going over my images, but if you can avoid a big area, it's just less to erase. Now, I chose this Hansa yellow because it does have a little bit of a greener tone to it compared to the other yellow. But you can see as I blend it in, that white is acting to keep it light. Now you will need to use a fixative on this. If you burnish it in pretty well, you don't have too much trouble, but I still recommend I would still recommend the fixative. So I just want to give it everything just a little bit of a light yellow, maybe even bringing it out here a little bit. And then just using my white to kind of soften that out. Anywhere that I feel like it's a little stark. Okay, so next up, now I'm just going to randomly add my colors. So this one's ultramarine blue. And I'm going ahead and kind of mixing it up in places with that yellow, allowing it to become a green. But in other places, I won't. I'll keep it that pure blue. Now the ultramarine has a little bit of more of a purple tint. You know, it's a blue lending towards the purple tones. I would not say it is purple at all. Next up is turquoise. Now here I'm using that turquoise to blend into that yellow to create my green. See how I can go over this image and really get all of that in between these different images. And what's nice is my pencil will go over this very easily, in addition to it erasing easily. Next up is Phthalo Blue Tint. That is a much brighter blue. Now a lot of that I'm going to go over with the gray. So let's add a little bit of this Payne's Gray tint. I'm just going to use the same one that I have been using. I just want a smooth blend between the blue and the gray, so that when I add that darker gray, it's not too much. Here I don't have to worry too much if I get it on there, because it erases so easily. But you can see I've hardly used any. I probably should have put a piece of paper behind there. You know, but hindsight's always 20/20. All right. So now let's go in with my actual Payne's Gray. I can get a piece of paper. Like I said, I'm not too worried because it erases, but we don't need to make life harder for ourselves either. Okay, I'm going to bring it over here to the side. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip into my Payne's Gray, kind of tap off a little bit, and then I'm going to go in with my lighter gray. Dipping into the lighter gray, just to blend that out a little bit, smooth it out. Once again, just kind of dipping into both, bringing it up into that blue. Just smoothing it all out. See, so I don't have to be super fussy about it, because if I add it and I get a little too much, I just go in and smooth it all out. I'm kind of going in with a little bit of gray, just kind of dialing that yellow back just a touch. And I'm going back in with my white. And this is just a game that you play until you find something that you like. And you're like, oh, I don't like the gray. I can dial it back. I don't like, you know, the yellow. I can dial it back. I think it needs maybe a little bit of this Derylide jello. I don't know if that's how you say it. And then once again going in with my white just to smooth that out a little. And then just keep playing. You can always layer. Bring the brightness back a little bit here and there. This is turquoise. Okay. Now see right here, I got a little blobs. That is most likely from touching this book when I had some oil, lotion, something on my hands. Okay. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is take my eraser and go in and just clean it up a little bit. Trying very hard to keep my hand off the paper. Now, if you're working with a color like red, like the bright red, be more cautious with going over things that you want to keep completely white. Your colored pencils will go over the pan pastels really easily, but red is a little bit of a staining color, so you just want to be a little more careful. So I erased a little too much. I just go back in and add it back. In the little areas, you can put a piece of paper down to keep your hand from smearing. So it really doesn't matter what eraser you use. Just be careful that your eraser doesn't have other colors on it. Now, if I want to use a fixative before I go into colored pencil, which is oftentimes a good idea because then you don't smear what you've already done, just know you won't be able to erase afterwards. So get all your erasing done before you do any fixative. Now, once again, your colored pencil will go over it, but it's just something to be aware of if you were wanting to use the white of the paper for something. But this is a much faster medium than colored pencil for sure. And I am using tints, so this is very soft. If you were to go in, just 1 second. You can see if you were to use these brighter tones, it would make a very vibrant background. I'm just choosing to use these pastels. I want it to be soft. I may add colored pencil to it when I'm done. The other thing that works well here, if you're erasing, is these little mono zero erasers to get into these tiny little details. But once again, it's not necessarily required to erase. I just want to show you what it looks like when we've erased it and show you the value of pan pastels. You could color an entire page with pan pastels. Okay, so So I'm feeling like it is still needing something, so I'm going to use a little bit of violet. Okay, at this point, all I've done is erase the the images again. I didn't feel like you needed to hear the ver the entire time. So that's really all I've done. Now I'm adding a little magenta tint just to add a little variance of color. This is something that you just play with and see, what do you think it's missing? What do you think you should add? What do you think you should blend better until you're happy? I wish there was a better formula, but that's really all this is. The pastels blend so beautifully together, and you really can't mess up, because if you really don't like what you've done, at this point, you can literally erase the entire page and start all over. Now, the one thing I will caution you about is this works really well with the pastels. If you were to be using blacks and reds and deep yellow, like purples, because those can be staining to the paper. So at this point, I'm going to dive into the colored pencil, and then I can always tweak the background again. I did take it outside and spray it with 2 coats of Krylon Workable Fixative. I do have to say the Krylon Workable Fixative has a much stronger smell than the Grumbacher I've been used to, but it seems to work fine. Now I'm starting with adding just a little bit of this lime peel. I just want a little hint of a yellow green in the leaves and along the stems. So that's what I'm doing here. So overall, I don't want the color of the stem and the leaf to be this yellow green. I just want a little hint of it. I did opt to use Prismacolor. I have to say, they are my go-to pencil. And a lot of it is, I just really like the colors in Prismacolor. Not so much how they perform, because I can make most any pencil, or I can color with most any pencil. But I just really like the color palette of Prismacolor. So I'm just going in and I'm just going to go in with my dark tone, then the next lightest tone, then the next lightest tone, and then my lightest tone, and I will repeat the process. So I do want to show you the entire thing, so I'll set it to music and then I'll be back as soon as we're doing something new. Okay, so next we're going to start on our flowers. And I'm just using the lightest gray, which is the 10% cool gray. And I'm just adding in where the shadows would be, where the flower would kind of fold in on itself. So you can see just little flicks of color up the petal, starting at the base, starting there at the center, and going about halfway out. And then just anywhere I feel like there would be a fold. So as that petal folds over, I go ahead and I color the underside in this lighter gray. By doing this, we're going to use the white of the paper and our Prismacolor white to create white flowers. But in order to have white, you have to have something defining the white. So I go ahead and I use this 10% gray to do that. You could use periwinkle. You could use, well, periwinkle's a little dark. It's your choice how much you want it to pop off, but you could use cloud blue. If it was something, if you wanted the green, you could use the gray-green light. That would also be good. So depending on the look that you want, cool gray to me works really well. Light purple, light pink, all of those different tones can do different things. I just really like the looks of gray unless I'm trying to depict something whimsical, like a Rita Berman book. I think that the pinks and the light blues and the purples lend very well when coloring, say, snow. But in this case, it's a little bit more of a serious photo, and so I like the light gray. Next up, I'm going to go in with the 30% gray and just add ever so slightly more color to some of those lines. Not all of them, because you want some to be less distinct than others. But you can see, like on the tips of the petals, where like that one, it's a little heart. I just put like a little kind of, almost like a little triangle in that just kind of depicts maybe that there's a dip there. It just adds a little bit of interest. You don't have to do this. You can do it more than this. You could add a lot more shadows. I just think it adds a little bit of interest. Now you could go inside each of those petals down at the base and add a little more shadow there. Looking at it now, I probably could have done that, but I didn't. The wonders of voiceover, you see all your little, like, oh, I should have done that, or I shouldn't have done this. Okay, next I'm going to use white. And I don't have a card for it, but it's just white Prismacolor. And I'm basically just going over all of the petals, kind of blending in that gray a little bit, kind of smudging it in if you must. But, basically I want this to be white, and so I'm going in with the white. So while I'm just doing white, I want you to take a look at the background. I was looking at the voiceover and I thought, wow, what a really ugly background. Did I miss a step? Because I like how it turned out in the end. And I really didn't. It's just that once you add the colors, it changes the look of the background. The background starts to blend in more and look better. I have never done a background first where I didn't like the picture in the end. I have, however, done a background in Kanoko Agusa's Symphony of Cute Animals, in which I really liked how the picture was until I did the background, and then I really disliked how it all turned out. So take that for what it is. I think we're all different and work different, so there is no perfect answer to this, but I always have the option when I'm done coloring this to change the background again if I need to. But I just wanted to point it out. So this white Prismacolor, it really does kind of soften the raw edge of that gray and kind of smooth it over just a little bit. Now next up, I'm going to take cream and I'm going to go in just at the base of those little, I'm actually going over the entire inside of the flower. Is this called the stamen? I can't remember. But anyway, this inside part, and I'm just kind of covering everything over. I'm trying not to just do a whole circle thing, but at the same time, a lot of those lines are a little confusing there as to which one is the piece of the flower, which one is, the in-between. So I'm not taking a whole lot of worry about that. I'm really enjoying this book. Next I'm going in with the jasmine, and this time I'm only going over the little tops of those, where there's the little ovals at the top. This is all I'm coloring with those, because I want there to be a distinction between those and the very tips. So nothing too exciting here. I will go over them again with another color, but I just want them to be a little deeper color. I really struggle with pastels because I was doing really good, but if you look at those leaves, they're pretty vibrant for the rest of the picture. I like how this picture turned out. I'm not unhappy, but I see these ultra soft pictures and my punchy color persona takes over and I just struggle with that because I love the soft look of these flowers as is right now. Like you could literally leave it, well, not so much the narcissus, but the Christmas rose. So as promised, I got to add a little more color. So this is a Spanish orange. And once again, I'm just going over the tips, and I'm not going over the entire tip. So like if you picture an oval, I'm only doing a little piece of that oval. It's just to give a little more pop of color. And then I'm also starting to add the color for the center of these narcissus. I decided a lot of these, and I'm not into, like, gardening to me is nothing but pulling weeds. I love the flowers. I love to look at them, but the people that enjoy gardening, hats off to y'all. To me, it's just work. But so I'm not sure if these are considered a daffodil, but daffodils are yellow. And I decided I wanted these white with just the yellow in the center. So like I said before, I could have used the gray like I did in the other ones, but I actually wanted to use cream here to depict the centers because I wanted to add a little bit of yellow flaring out from the center. I just wanted them to be a little bit different, but I really didn't want them to be completely yellow. I wanted them to be white with that pop of yellow in the center. So going in with that Spanish orange, I want to bring that color out as well. So I'm not going over, I go over some of the cream lines, but I also create other lines that are just the Spanish orange. So just to add a little bit of variance. So back in with my white Prisma to go over everything, just like I did with the white flowers above, I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to go ahead and set it to music, and I'll be back in a minute. Okay, let's do the nib. We're going to go in with 10% gray here. Sorry, my hand kind of gets in the way there. And just along the edges, I'm going to use 30% gray. And then I blended a little bit with the white, and I decided I wanted it a little darker, so I went in with the 50% gray. And then back with the 30% to blend it out a little, and then in with the white. So here I'm just going back in and smoothing out the center of those flowers. I just had a few spots where they just needed blended better, and so that's what I'm doing here with the two colors that we used before. So nothing earth-shattering. You might not even need to do this if you were on top of things. I just wasn't. Okay, next up is artichoke. And basically I just wanted the tops of these little flowers to be a darker color. Okay, so I decided that I wanted this gray lavender for my envelope and my little card here. Initially, I was thinking of blue, but I wanted something a little different than the majority of the background. And I really like the pops of color that I had going up around the flower area. And so I decided to go with this gray lavender. So I'm just going to color that, and then I'm going to color the card cream, and I'm going to color in those little snowbells. I think that's what they're called, but I just colored those white just like we did the other flowers. So once again, I'll set you to music, and I'll be back in a jiff. Next up is our ink jar and our ink quill. So I'm using this blue, violet lake, and cloud blue, and I'm just going to go in and create, this side's going to be a little darker with the left side being a little lighter. So I'm just blending these two shades in. Here I'm going to do this coat and another coat, and then I'm going to basically do the exact same thing with our ink pen with the darker on the bottom. So once again, I'll set you to music and we'll see you in a few. Okay, so next we're going to do this little seal. So I go in with cream first, then I'm going to take artichoke, and I'm just going to go around the edges, but I'm leaving gaps between my lines there. So I don't want anything like a solid line. I want it kind of sketchy, because this is somewhat reflective. Next I'm going to add some goldenrod just on the A, and just a little, like barely kissing the paper. I just want to ever so slightly change the color. That's all I'm doing here. And then I'm going to go down into this into my pen and use these same colors to kind of tie it together. And then back with the cream. Sorry for the camera angle today. It seems a little worse than normal. I must have moved my camera a little more upright above my head. So sorry about that. So just a little bit of artichoke, just add a little depth of color here at the base. Okay, so I'm back with the white Prismacolor, and I'm basically going over all the cream. I just wanted it to be a little bit lighter. So I'm just going over all of it. It also helps kind of blend and burnish it in a little bit. Okay, next up is the stamper, embosser, whatever you want to call this thing. So I'm just going in with this peach beige. I wanted a very soft, kind of a wood looking color, but I really didn't want the starkness of a brown. So that's kind of why I went with this beige sienna and the peachy beige. I just felt like it would be kind of a nice balsa wood kind of pine color. And I'm just adding a little bit of shadowing on the edges just to make it look a little more curved, and then blending that out a little bit. Now I am going a little darker on some of the spots where it's raised. You'll notice, see how I skipped that top one and then I went to the bottom. I hope you can see what I'm talking about, because obviously words are hard today. Okay, we're almost done. Add a little bit of the cool gray in the center there for the little embosser. I decided to do the ribbon in this great lavender, and I'm going to use gray for the shadows and the highlights. Or not the highlights, just the shadows, and then I use white in the highlights. So just adding a little darker color here. I don't want it to be too dramatic, because this is a very soft color and you can really overpower it. So I'm leaving a little bit of white on each of those bows and in the center of the ribbons. And then I go over that with the white Prisma. And you can see how it just makes it look a little reflective, or a little kind of shiny. And I noticed that I had missed that little piece of peach beige. And then here I'm going to use that same color for the label on the ink jar, and using espresso for the writing. Now for the final thing here at the bottom, I am so very sorry. I am out of camera and you can't see a dang thing of what I'm doing. This is the problem with with trying to zoom in a little bit. But basically I do little flicking motions like you would do for hair. I'm just flicking them up on the lower part of this feather, alternating between the peach beige and the, the sienna color, the burnt sienna or whatever. And I'm just flicking them up, and then I take a little bit of cream, I think, and just flick that up through it as well. And then along the spine I use espresso. So this is kind of the darker thing. In the puffy part, I started with that cool gray. I think that's what I showed first when I was apologizing. And then I flicked up with the espresso. And, you know, basically I just kind of go back and forth a little bit until I kind of like it. So once again, my sincerest apologies for not being in camera. I didn't feel this picture needed any white Posca, so this is going to be the end. And until next time, happy coloring. Thank you for watching another video from Jazzydoodledesigns. If you enjoy adult coloring content, please consider subscribing. You can now find me on Instagram and Facebook as well. I welcome all comments and suggestions. Don't forget to like the video before you go. And until next time, take care.